also do the Rumble route because that's the goal of mine too.
Aren't like most podcasts now, like while they do like air on Spotify and things like that, they're their own like almost production company now. Like, they don't really answer to anybody.
A lot of them, but there's now been growing, and that's where I'm trying to get to is kind of having like a podcast production company. But there's been a lot of this like new growth with these podcast production companies. So I'm trying to learn all the basics right now, so I can actually go on, keep this one going as like the fun time, keep learning and stuff. But then also start opening up new podcasts that are a lot more like dedicated and thoughtful, and helping people do it, and like kind of starting up this production company, so it's a lot more streamlined.
I feel you.
Because dude, I mean obviously like no one tells you how much is into something until you get into it.
Yeah, facts. And you obviously won't have a full perspective on it until you start doing it personally. Yeah. Maybe I can handle some things, a little better or a little worse, and then you come through and you could just handle everything perfectly. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's just about taking those risks, dude. And I think you're doing a great job of like stepping in and trying to get your feet wet with this, so pretty good.
Appreciate that. But going back to the Bioshock real quick before honestly might be a good way to step into this pod, but
yeah, go for it.
But like you don't need to hide away. You're good right now. This is still like gonna be cut footage.
Yeah, I'm just practicing.
Well, when we do like a little break or something, I'll do like a snap cut. So I'll snap beforehand, and then like we can fuck around.
Is that why it's called a snap cut?
Well, no, snap cut's actually like when it snaps like directly to the next thing, but I'll actually snap for a snap cut.
Oh, that's crazy.
But so the first Bioshock, and I'm gonna be brief on the first 2 games, but the third
There's 3 games.
Yeah, but the third one's different, and I love it because at first I hated it low key because I was like,
is that the one with like the flying cities and all that?
Exactly. And I'll explain more on that in a second. But back to Bioshock 1. The idea behind Bioshock 1 was there was this city where this guy, I can't remember what his name was, but he decided to build this underwater city called Rapture where people were free of kings, gods, and like rulers and lords and stuff. And so they went down there, and it became like this like super technologically advanced society, and like super like high societyist, and it's like people just got a lot of money and stuff, and it was everything was good. Like everyone was good. Everyone was living well. And it was like all types of people because like it was kind of all living to get the survival of the Rapture City to keep going. And there was like companies and corporations and stuff that kind of had maybe a little bit more sway in terms because they had their own little sectors and stuff that they would kind of manage more so themselves. But like for the most part, the city of Rapture was kind of open itself. And what happens before our kind of character kind of comes in is that a civil war breaks out within it, which is one of these massive corporations and another massive corporation. They basically get into a serious rivalry. I can't remember for what means, but I think it's something to like get higher control of like market and some shit, right? So capitalism comes.
It's funny that started with communism and went right into capitalism.
But I think it was between the guy who like basically started it, the guy who started the city, and then like one of the guys who kind of rose up and became like one of the more like
prominent.
Yeah, he was like one of the poster childs for like, oh, you can like do this big shit in the city of Rapture. Oh, you good catch. Dude, fucking, we might get you tested for the spider reflex.
I know, bro. It's not good.
But so Civil War breaks out, and then the entire place goes crazy, and it's kind of this is drug addicts and all this stuff, and it just becomes like this kind of like almost wasteland in a sense, but like there's still they're kind of trying to rule over like this almost. It's kind of a wasteland, but it's hard because you're like in this underground like super fucking nice like city. But everything's just kind of on the verge of breaking in some sense. You're like seeing like cracks in like the glass of what if you see like the entire sea.
So nowadays, United States, got it. Okay, cool.
Really good, right? Really good. And so in the first one, some trippy shit happens. In the second one, you play as like one of the actual kind of like worker dudes, but they end up kind of explaining more about who they are. I think in the first game, I'm not sure the first game or second game. More so in the second game for sure, but like basically these guys are like slaves. They're like slaves, serfs.
Yep.
And they're put into like these like they're like welded into these like what are they called? The sub.
Cyclops? Oh, the diver suits.
Yeah, the old ones. So like basically like their bodies like glued genetically to these like diver suits, and so they all have like different like hand modifications and shit.
Like the drills and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that kind of like follows along the story of like one of these guys who kind of like breaks out, and he's like one of the different ones. That's one of my favorite ones. Bioshock 2 is like
one of the different ones.
Yeah, I love Bioshock 2. It's a great one. But that concept set down, I think they kind of perfected what they were going for, and that kind of like they're like trying to be like, you know what I'm saying, like in terms of like, oh, what's going on in the real world side. But the third game, they're like, I was kind of pissed at first when I was young when it came out, because I was like, oh dude, another fucking underwater game. They're gonna fucking explain more about like what's happened to Rapture since, and instead they went into another plane, a different universe, and they.
This is the third one, right?
Yeah, but it's called Infinite, so it's just like different. And it's like a different universe where everything is in the sky. Like it's a city built in the sky instead of in the water. But I think what they hit the fucking nail in the coffin, and what they're trying to say in the first games, was they started adding so much of these like more deeper political references and stuff. So like, you get in there, and there's this like the way they feel about the founding fathers. It's like so it's the correlation between the founding fathers and religion is just like drawn so close together. There's one dude named the Prophet, and it's like the way they see him. It's everything's very like American Revolution, like, you know, kind of feels politically like that.
Motivated.
Yeah. But they always kind of keep these kind of draws. So it's like there's the Church of the Prophet, and it's like a political organization or some shit. But it's like, why do you call it Church of the Prophet? And those correlations in that, I think, helped what they were trying to get conveyed in the first game. And you kind of see that too, because towards the end of the game, it's more about like you ripping between different universes, and how like it's just like subtly different. And like in one of them you step into, it's like there's the Vox Republica, which is like the movement that was like kind of starting up in the universe you came through, but like now they're like a fucking front, and there's a whole revolution going on in Rapture, and then also like the desolate like possible future or some shit, and it's just so good, and it's kind of confusing and mind bending, but at the end it finishes with like you walking through Rapture, and it's just like, I think what they're trying to put is like, are you kind of seeing it all?
Okay, that's cool as heck. I might have to get into those games.
You can really just play Infinite because it's just such a good game.
But if
you want fun, dude, Bioshock 2, because it's like there's less like references to like, it's less like there's less of a message in the first two games. While like I see it definitely more so like in hindsight, it's more of just like a mind fuck for the first two. Like they just try to be like more mind fucky, and you're like, your character was this person all along. And you're like, oh no. Yeah. I think there's a possible theory that the character in the first game was the son of the guy who created Rapture, and he sent for him to like rescue and save the place or something like that. But it's all about like the first two games for sure, all about like just being like plot twist.
Yeah, I know, man. That's pretty cool.
Third game is just like kind of a real message, and it's such a great like almost as good as God of War 4, because God of War 4 is just like a fucking masterpiece in art. And dude, literally, it's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
Combat, amazing, and the storyline is about a father and a son mourning. Like all that other shit, like Thor, Baldur, all that's a side quest bullshit. The main quest is them mourning. Like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. The moments they have where they're like, your mother loves you, and like him trying to like break into his son. Like, dude, that shit literally hit me at my core. Like seeing like, because like I think every guy can draw correlations to that in their life, where like you're like starting to like have to like really communicate with your father in a different sense, and it's not all about just like, you know, like you're no longer just a fucking private, basically. You're now kind of starting to rise in the ranks, and you're like, this is a bad way to say it, but like, you understand what I'm trying to say. And like now you're getting closer to the point where you have to see each other as equals, and it was just such an amazing storyline. Great choice. The way they wrote it and left room for like this. Like I would say Ragnarok isn't as good as the first one, but I think it was an amazing sequel, and I think that like it's just hard to hit gold twice sometimes, and like
I think God of War has done a good job of hitting a couple of times on classic games. You know what I'm saying? I feel like when I think of,
but
I mean the series that I think about the most that has like classic games would be like Final Fantasy. I think and Kingdom Hearts. I think those two series did a great job of like consistently like putting out. Obviously, you know, you have some that are better than the others, and that's you're always gonna have that, and you're gonna have some way off misses, and but I think they've consistently been the ones that kind of hit really good games. And then you have Mario that they just throw everything out at you.
Somehow they really throw fucking shit at the wall and see what sticks.
I mean, imagine Mario Sunshine Island or whatever, where you have the Wii game.
Wait. Was the one with the
backpack, the water, the hydro backpack thing?
That was fun.
It's fun, but it's like, where did that come from? Like,
facts, yeah.
It has nothing to do with the Mario universe.
He was on vacation, and he was just like
the concept is
back to the office?
The concept was great. The game was a fun gameplay, but if you look at like all of the lore behind Mario, it's like, what are you doing? What's going on in this world?
You were like Dr. Mario?
He went
who thought that was gonna work?
He went to the outer space. Like, he went to like Mario Galaxy, and he was like collecting stars. I'm like, what's going on? Like,
that one hit.
Mario Nintendo 64 will always be my favorite. It's an instant classic.
It's low-key so fucking good.
My favorite part was in the menu.
It holds up today. That's what I'm saying about God of War 4 is like, it's like, out of all the fucking Mario games, if God of War was kind of laid out like that, it's I would argue, and people would definitely argue this because I didn't grow up basically on 1, 2, and 3. So there's like people who are fucking diehards, they can definitely fight me on this, and I might be wrong, but it's God of War 4 to your general viewer, like, it's becoming like the Mario 64 of the God of War games. Like, it's like a
classic go-to.
It's like a standalone classic, dude. Like, it could be a standalone. Like Borderlands 2 is the Mario 64 of the Borderlands.
I don't know if it's 2 or 3, but right now the boys in the house, they are actually
3, dude. 3 sucks. Dude.
I think they're playing 3 right now. I don't know if it's 3 or 2, but they are like addicted to that game. They will play that game from when they wake up to when they go to bed. It's crazy.
I hate Borderlands 3 because I feel like I was raised on Borderlands 1 and 2, right? And like when Borderlands 2 came out, it was the perfected version of Borderlands 1. And like, it was low-key like, Borderlands 1 was a cult classic. Like, it was hard for people to like Borderlands 1. For some reason, my weird ass loved that game. Mostly because it was like one of the first times I had my first best friend, and we just got in that game, and you know. But Borderlands 2 came out, and that was a fucking like, people loved it. Like, everyone loved it. People who never even heard of Borderlands were like, fuck it, I'll jump into Borderlands 2, not even play Borderlands 1. Mm-hmm. That happened. Borderlands 3 came out, and I feel like they were trying to perfect Borderlands 2. Problem is, it's already a perfected model. And I say that, I'm not saying that Borderlands 2 wasn't a good game, I just feel, and I've heard other people say this too, if they wrapped it up as a different game completely, if they called it something other than Borderlands, if they didn't, it would have an amazing hit. It would kill with every single audience, like in any, because it hits the younger age group. It also allows like some of the more higher level kind of thought gameplay that I think a lot of older crowds love to kind of have, like min-maxing of stats, gears, and shit like that. If you're a younger guy, you can still fucking play some of that stuff and just focus on, but like, it would have been an instant classic, and it kind of has been taking off with more of like the general public again, but it's lost so much of like the actual Borderlands community. Like people, like, I have not seen Borderlands videos coming out in a long time, and I still see more people streaming Borderlands 2 than Borderlands 3, and it's just like, it's a clear divide in the games. And I'm happy that in their choices with Tiny Tina and Wonderland, they kind of try to do that, but it's the bond that you put in literally just naming it Borderlands 3.
Yeah, you're initially attaching it to that, and
it's a hard thing to break away from. And so now they're trying to be like, oh look, we're making a whole new game series out of a DLC from Borderlands 2.
Isn't that the one with dragons and stuff like that? Yeah, I saw that and I was like confused about it.
Yeah, same here. I was just like, dude, you're just going too deep into this. And at some point, you should just fucking. You gotta just change the
And they came out with like a prelude game too, like a prequel or whatever. Like.
Oh, it's Borderlands 3.
No, like to Borderlands. It wasn't like called Borderlands prequel or something like that, or
the pre-sequel was good actually.
Is it? Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying they keep coming out with things, and I just
that one came out before Borderlands 3 came out.
Okay. I just don't know the order of the games because I know there's a lot of Borderlands games.
So you have 1 and then 2 came out.
Okay.
And then the prequel came out, or the pre-sequel.
The pre-sequel,
which was kind of hated at first, but I think
is that the one where there's a scene, where there's a level where you're like doing the whole like finger gun fighting thing. There's a game of Borderlands that's like that, is it not? Possibly. I've seen videos of it.
Possibly. There's like emotes and stuff, but I think
no, but it's like a level where like literally everybody's just doing this, and like they're actually like. I don't know, dude. I might be a different game that had the same Borderlands graphics.
Borderlands has a lot of shit. Like I can't even reset, like pull all that.
It's a lot.
There's a lot of games.
You know what used to be my favorite games growing up? I used to have 2 favorite series. It was Jak and Daxter, and it was Sly Cooper. I was really a bit Sly Cooper. You know Sly Cooper?
I don't think I know Sly Cooper.
Oh my god, look this up. Sly Cooper is amazing. I also used to like Ratchet and Clank, but their games just got too convoluted too quick. Oh, Sly Cooper, that's the guy right there, dude.
I don't even think I've ever seen. Oh wait, I think I've seen.
You were like you were this raccoon. Was it a raccoon?
I think it's a raccoon. Yeah.
You were a raccoon that
Getting closer.
you were a raccoon that like was part of this like family of like thieves, like generations of like the greatest thieves to ever fucking touch the earth, and then one day they had this book, and I forget what the book was called, but basically it had all the secrets of all the spies, all their techniques, what they did, because some of them could turn invisible, some of them could like walk on wires, things like that, like really cool stuff. And then it was very sought after, and then there was this group of bad guys, and I forget their name, but they were led by this giant mechanized bird called Clockwork, and they stole it was called like the Stevious something, I can't remember what it is, but basically they stole it, and the first game is all about Sly going and collecting the pages, learning his heritage, learning like all these techniques and everything, while also escaping from the law basically. And it's a really, really cool concept, really cool game. I think they came out with like 3 or 4 like main games, and then there's like a bunch of shoot-offs here and there. But the first game was very like hallway level, very
hilly.
Well, yeah, it's just like a hallway type game where you just have to get from one end of the level to the other end, and there's jumping and everything, but there's not really like an open world aspect to it. I think like the second one is the one that came out with more of an open world concept. I mean, you were still trapped within a invisible border, and you had to travel to different locations. But once you were in those locations, they were a lot bigger than what it was in the first game. And then I think the third game was the best game by far. Like obviously biggest. That's when really technology and PlayStation 3 I think is what it was at that time, and it was a great game. And I think that Sly Cooper was a completely underrated game. So was Jak and Daxter. Jak and Daxter was completely underrated, I think.
What was the first open world game?
First open world game?
I feel like Zelda. Right?
I mean, what do you define as open world? Let's start there, because I define open world as like there's like Red Dead to me is an open world. Like it's obviously unrealistic with the scale of like what it takes to get from this location to this location in the map, but there's no real loading between areas. Like I can travel from the southern tip of the map to the northern tip of the map. Mm-hmm. Skyrim's a great example of that. GTA 5 is a great example.
Borderlands open world?
I would consider Borderlands pretty open world.
Because it's like you have maps that you load into.
That's the part where to me it kind of muddies the line.
Different region,
Yeah, because the thing is with Skyrim you have different regions as well, but you can travel to any of those regions without having to like load a different sector of the map. So I don't know.
I was gonna say maybe maybe Zelda, because I feel like even they, I don't know, dude. Because I haven't played enough Zelda games. I don't know how.
But I also think that you have to give grace to the older games in that sense, because the technology wasn't there yet. Like I can't compare Red Dead 2 with the Ocarina of Time, for example, because like Red Dead 2, you're not gonna have to load from one level to the next, but we didn't have that capacity back then. So dude, how much of it is it? You know what I'm saying? What?
Pokemon.
I just, those 8-bit games really give me an issue, because
I feel like that was like the first.
I feel like you have a point, but it's just like,
look this up.
Yeah, because that's actually a good point. I never thought of Pokemon as an open world game, actually.
This is why I need somebody. I would love to make this a multi-person operation, but my schedule and most people's.
Dude, I will literally help you do all this.
Dude, I can get the schedules down. Fuck yeah.
That's the first open world game. That says open world RPG.
Is it just saying open world is the game?
In video games, an open world is virtual. So then it's just saying The Legend of Zelda is included in that. So, and that's a pretty old
is it the
game.
Wikipedia one you saw?
Whoa. Wait. Go back into what you just said.
What is the first
trailer? I saw something in 1975, bro.
Read quick, man. Read quick.
Modern open world title, they're using the... See right down there. For instance, some very early games allow you to move around a large environment, such as 1970's Jet Rocket and 75's Western Gun. But there wasn't... But there wasn't really a lot... Okay. So
those are the free roaming games. Oh, that's an interesting
differentiation. Pause this real quick. I gotta go to the bathroom.
I kind of feel like World's more a free roaming game then.
I guess you can say that.
Utilize a lot of smoke and mirrors to hide the linear actual words.
I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick.
Go crazy.
It do be selling. Okay.
Wait. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Alex. As always, you're watching Fuck the School Radio. Keeping that shit in, because this is raw as fuck. I'm joined by Jose. We're talking about fucking anything, but also fucking that, which is that thing. We are fucking the general school of knowledge. Fuck the school. Welcome.
I love it. Hello. Great to be here.
Yeah. We were just talking about military.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know, man. I just think that once we started establishing standing armies, we went wrong. I think once standing armies in nations came to like a controllable, full-scale thing, I think that's where we started to kind of...
Standing army is like a...
So standing army is like standing army is what most countries have nowadays, which is an active military force that continuously trains, continuously prepares, much like you see active duty military in America, Great Britain, Australia, things like that. The opposite of that was I forget the name that they used to have for them, but it was like you're from the land and your lord tells you, hey, we're gonna have a war, so people rise up, but there was no standing army, and that used to be a really big deal because back in the day, any empire or countries that used to have standing armies used to be overthrown. The political power would be overthrown by the army, so it was a way to mitigate that. But once kind of we, I guess, learned how to control all of it, it really just went downhill, in my opinion. Because that's so much money. Imagine the amount of money we spent on the military. Like, trillions of dollars is our military budget. And I think they did a study the other day. Well, not the other day, obviously, but I read a study the other day that said, like, to end homelessness in America, it would cost something like, forever, by the way, it would cost something like $25 billion. And to completely eradicate hunger, again, I think it's just in America, and I'm talking about America right now because that's what we know. But it would cost something about like $20 billion a year to end hunger in America. And I think people would be surprised to learn that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think me and my dad were talking about this, and I think people would be surprised on how much you focused on education. Like how much that would fix things over time, obviously, but like just like I feel like it would boggle people.
But but that's the problem. Why I think they,
But it boggle people that $25 fucking billion is all.
Oh, 100%, and a lot of people always have the counter argument of like, well, there's not enough, like, you can't just magically turn $20 billion into food and stuff like that. But it's like the amount of food that we throw away as a country is a fraction. Like that 20 billion would be a fraction of the amount of food that ends up in landfills. Like when you go, just so y'all know, when y'all go to the grocery store and all those foods and all those boxes and everything you see, not all of that gets sold. A lot of that, a great percentage of that ends up in landfills and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think we have this perfectionist mindset where we always think like the grocery store will only get as much as needed, you know what I'm saying? And it's not really like that. So much of it ends up being just discarded.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like not every business model is set like that, right? It's like the grocery store needs to fill the shelves.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they want to look full, they want to look like, exactly. You know, and I think we have a very, you know, as Americans, we're very, well, you know, we're very consumer-based people. Like, we just want to have more and more and more. Overconsumption would be the proper word to say, because we take on way more than we need. And
I realized so much, like, when I went to Europe, dude, like, when I went over there, I was, like, pissed about, like, the idea that, like, if I went to McDonald's, that there's less salt in my food, and that, like, fucking, when I went to the fucking, you know, smoke shops, like, I couldn't find anything that was, like, over 2% nicotine.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the absolute fuck? But then I, like, kind of understanding why. I mean, like, the healthcare system, because you're not getting your own healthcare, that there has to be some mitigation as to, like...
Well, yeah, and I think that's also very important on the government, right? To be able... The government's job is to oversee the well-being of the people. As it stands, you know, I'm very against most types of government and governing bodies, but if we're going by the definition of what a government should do, it should look after the well-being and the welfare of the people. And even if that includes making decisions that we might not like, I mean, let's look at it this way. When we were kids and our parents would tell us, hey, you can't eat candy before dinner because, you know, it'll ruin your appetite and you're not going to get the proper nutrition. Well, yeah, you're telling me something I don't want, but you're doing it with the intention of getting me to the right end goal. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the government should be doing, but I feel like there's no profit in that. I feel like there's no money in that.
So that's what I was going to say. Is like, what I appreciated was that the fact that there was an initiative to basically make the people healthier.
Yeah.
But through the lens of having a cheaper health cost to the universal healthcare system. So I was like, that's where I was like, it's like, it shouldn't be through that lens. It should just be through the lens of like, we're here to fucking be better to our people, and we should try to, as you were saying, like, we should try to keep people from going into the ditches.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I was leaving, I began to appreciate it more, and it also left me with this taste of moderation to a high degree.
Yeah.
And especially coming back to the United States, maybe something I had forgotten, and especially, you know, reacquainting myself with, was just like how, I want to say over gluttonous, but I feel like that's more just kind of food, but just over consumption, over consumeristic, like the entire, like even America compared to like Europe in some aspects, like even though I do see the same disdain in terms of Western civilization, like even Europe has like, I mean, you go walk outside and see some fucking crazy shit, like some fucking castles and stuff, and it's not that fucking expensive or something like that. And in America, it's a little different, and we've definitely glued ourselves to this cars culture. Like, everything is separated by fucking
miles, like miles of highway. Just.
And I saw a fucking documentary that said like every lane in the interstate equates to like everything getting away like 10 or 20 miles away from each other. For like a town, if an interstate decides to put another lane in it, like everything basically starts to push itself like 10 to 20 miles.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, like, and you know, maybe not to get too far into that subject and things like that, but that's also all based on, you know, at least in America, in racist practices of separating, you know, the people of color, their community from the community of whites and things like that, which I also hate using the term of like white, black, and anything like that, because again, like kind of what we were talking about before we even got on here with kind of the Israeli stuff, it's again falling into a framework that I don't agree with. Especially when that framework was built by racist people to keep, you know, lower class people or workers in that state. You know what I'm saying?
Have you heard? I think I'm fucking taking this from a Joe Rogan episode, but it's a pretty funny joke.
What do you say?
But it's like so Einstein's in heaven or something, and this guy dies, and he comes in, oh my God, it's Einstein, and he says, Einstein, you know, I would love to talk to you, and he says, oh, what's your IQ? I'm fucking ripping this guy straight. I gotta find his name. I gotta put it in the description. But he goes, it's like 140 or something. He's like, oh, that's good. Like we can talk about the string theory and quantum physics and all the cool stuff. And then another guy comes up. He's like, oh, like what can we talk about? And he's like, what's your IQ? And he's like 100 or it was like 120 or something like that. And she's like, oh, we can talk about like politics and like the world and all that stuff. And then this guy comes up and he's like, what can we talk about? What's your IQ? He goes, it's about 100. And he said, oh, we can talk about culture wars.
Yeah, because that's actually a very fair point. I mean, like I disagree with the high end of it of like, oh, well, if we're at this point, you really can not only, but we can talk about these things. And I agree with the premise of Joe, because
when you talk about like really like when you like, I hate to use like black and white and all that stuff.
Yeah, because it kind of shows people in different categories that again, we're put there to divide us, and we're put there to not allow us to see that as a class, we are the working class, and we are all kind of united in that front. And the more they can divide us, as in the owner class, the bourgeois, the more they can divide us, the easier it is to conquer us.
I agree.
And that's the really messed up part about it. There's not that many of them, of the rich, the capitalists, the owners. There's not that many of them. So they're keeping millions. Yeah, maybe. And that means there's billions of people who are workers who are being forced to live a life that doesn't really make sense. Like, everybody likes to talk about like, oh, this isn't natural, this isn't natural. What part of what we're currently living in seems natural to you? Tell me where in the, other than humankind, tell me what animal you see collecting taxes from other animals.
I was like maybe probably a year ago at this point. I was like driving around town, and I was just looking at the fucking signs, and I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, all of our existence is like fucking wild, but especially the idea that a bunch of fucking monkeys decided to like start building some shit and like start writing things on walls to like designate like what they are and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just started seeing everything so alien like. So I was just like, starting to see people, like, if I kind of I don't say associate, but just humanize myself. I kind of put myself not as a human, just an observer.
Yeah.
I was like walking around, I was like, damn, dude, there's a bunch of fucking monkeys ran around on Planet of the Apes, built this fucking shit. And I'm just sitting, and it just made everything feel so alien. And you just, it really is so wild, all of it, right?
Because I feel like we do that. I feel like a lot of times we disassociate ourselves from the animal kingdom because as a society we have kind of stepped aside from the natural order of things, and we don't really have we're really an apex predator of kinds. We're an invasive species in a way, and a lot of times when you tell people, well, you realize that we are Homo sapiens, and Homo sapiens are descendants of, maybe not directly monkeys, but we're cousins. We're cousins of chimps. We're cousins of all. Like, you realize that, right? And I feel like a lot of people see something wrong with that. And again, I think it is based on some intrinsic racist beliefs where people just
always racist, but I think racist is to do with it, and I think also.
I think also people just don't want to accept the fact that they could be associated with it.
We also have this thing called religion.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? And like, arguably, like, this, I guess this is between the spiritual nature of life and
Yeah.
religion, but, like, that alone, I think, can bring a lot of people to be, like, drawing a distinct, like, we are heaven sent to, like, live this earth and stuff. And, like, I don't agree with that, because if you fucking put a lion and a human in a fucking cage, a lion's gonna fucking win.
Yeah, and it's, like, there's not any, like, religious intervention that's gonna stop that, is the point. Like, there is a natural order of things, and to try to superimpose a supernatural explanation for things that you don't simply know.
Earth, so we could tend to all these animals.
That's what I'm saying, and
lead them the right way.
And that's the problem with
and now all these animals being mass fucking produced and living. Sorry,
yeah,
living
and
fucking cages.
that's the problem with that. The problem is that we, once you start using a unexplainable supernatural effect, then you can control anybody. Because if I understand the concept and how to manipulate it so the masses are instilled with fear and are instilled with a sense of, I have to live like this, otherwise these are the everlasting consequences, then are you really doing anything to be nice? Are you really doing anything to be a better person within the community? Or are you just doing things because there is a promise of eternal paradise or a threat of eternal damnation?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, if I would consider myself atheist in the sense of, not that I'm saying there is no God, but I am saying more that I am not going to impose that belief of there being or not being a God. I'm more agnostic in the sense of, like, once I see evidence, I will be willing to change my stance. But until then, I don't think that there is a God. I don't think that there is these high religious things, because a lot of times, a lot of things we've attributed to these things, science has been able to explain it. Once we've been able to advance our scientific understanding and our technology,
Mm-hmm.
and two, a lot of the values and all these things that are bestowed upon us by religion are things that we intrinsically do as humans. Be a good neighbor, don't kill. Your meta ethics shouldn't be based on religion, because then it comes with a lot of presupposition, and it comes with a lot of, I'm only doing this to get into heaven or not.
Well, I think that's what's important. I think that's when the conversation of religion being important for your general public, becomes bigger then. And I don't know. I want to say that we've probably outgrown the need for it, but I don't know, because of the shit you see out in life, it's like. But then also, who's fucking at the head of the church nowadays too?
Yeah.
So it's like, not only do I think there might be a need for religion, it's just hard. It's hard to coordinate that, right? It's hard to have that, and I've had this argument myself with, like, multitude of things. I've thought of, like, if there was to be some sort of, like, lasting authoritative force that was to be, like, actually good, plenty, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do, because I can't remember what person said it, but it's like, the only way to do things badly or do things for evil at a mass scale is to think that you're doing things for good at a mass scale.
Yeah. What's good for the geese isn't necessarily good for the flock. You know what I'm saying?
And so the idea is, like, if you were to set up some sort of way to have, like, a government, right? Like, how do you ensure that you're going to get the most righteous of people? And that's a conversation I've had myself a lot. Can't remember where I was coming from before this, but it's the thing with the church. Like, it's like, how do you actually ensure these people are to be, like, the most righteous? And, like, what is to be the scale as to what is the most righteous? And then at the same time, like, how can you ensure that those ideals are righteous? Because as we evolve, right, things have kind of changed in our scales of what good and evil per se is.
Well, I think a very difficult point that you are trying to get to, which is a good way to move forward. But it's difficult because I'm always going to see things through a different lens than everybody else. We each have our own interpretation of things, and just because I think this is good doesn't mean that you think this is good. The same thing with when you look at things like capitalism, because socialism and its communism and all these practices. That's why there's so many deviation between people, because they all believe that system is good, but they like their own interpretation of it. They like their own way of doing it. So they branch off into their own thing. And that's why I think that having these overarching and huge multinational corporations and multinational just groups is very dangerous, because, again, things, just looking, like, forget saying things in Africa are different than things in America, because that's obvious. But look at things like, dude, things in Florida are different than things in Georgia, and they are neighboring states. And having a overarching federal government just kind of tell all these people, well, this is what it's like to be an American, and this is the proper way, and this is what you have to do. I feel like it's very dangerous, because you're also telling people that they must conform to a certain way of thinking, and they must conform to a certain way of being in order to be classified what they are. And
I was literally thinking about this on the car ride yesterday back from work, but it's kind of like I was thinking of it both ways, how destructive it is for the people inside, but also people on the outside looking at those people. Because you look at basically the rest of the world, and maybe I'm loosely attributing this to dialects and accents in order to kind of convey a point, but like the way that we see people's accents is like the way different countries in like South America like see each other as fucking like types of Spanish and shit. But understand, like, that's a country divide. Like, that will divide a country sometimes. So it's like we're sitting here trying to fucking rope in
everybody,
all these motherfuckers that, like, if other people around the world are like, we have just a bit different Spanish and we're gonna, why are we sitting here trying to be like, bro?
Well, I mean,
and it's a loose analogy to explain what.
No, but it really does make sense, and I mean, I think it's a very. That's what I honestly like, and I like communism, and I think communism is at the root. And I'm talking about Marxist type communism, how it should be. There shouldn't be a state. There shouldn't be like a overarching government that takes care of you. There should be positive communities that you build the community up, you move forward, and then there's interconnectivity, and there is aid and help to all the other surrounding communities. But the way that my community runs itself isn't going to be dictated on how you run your community. And obviously with freedom of movement and everything, there's a lot of ways that now we could implement that and do it differently. But the problem it being is that, again, I just don't think that anybody has the authority to just tell everybody. And I don't think that one person or 5 people should have the authority to tell millions of people how their lives are about to change, especially when those 5 people are going to be looking out for their best interest and the best interest of their families.
Well,
so millions of people are.
And also, kind of one of the more things pissing me off the most is under the false context that they're elected.
Yeah, I feel like
if it was actually elected.
Yeah,
like maybe this
well, you're elected, but think about it this way.
No, but if they're, if the it's all a political game, dude, and even then they're setting up who's going to be the fucking too, right? So it's like if you took away all the bullshit that's actually going on in the background, I think people would feel a lot differently too. And I'm not saying it fixes the shit, but I'm just saying that probably fucking help.
Well, I think the issue with the political system we have now in the United States is that I don't remember when we did this, it was fairly recently, but when we started to equate money for free speech. And once we said, hey, how you spend your money, that's actually speech. So it's protected. And now these super corporations and these billionaires and these capitalist people have the ability to basically select who they want to win the primaries and everything like that. And really it just comes to the point of it's a selection that then gets ratified by us. And by that I don't mean like they know who's gonna win and they know that it's rigged. What I'm saying is that they support candidates on both sides, and then those candidates end up being just ratified by us. So they get funded, they get whatever, and then the capitalists are just saying, well, we are okay with either, for example, the last election, we're okay with either Trump or Biden winning. Because we've already invested, like BlackRock, like Vanguard, like all these people. We've already invested money into both of them. We know we have both of them in our pockets. Now we're just going to present these two options that we're okay with to you, the people, and you, the people, can ratify this decision. And it's not really like that, because think about it this way: if you honestly wanted to select a leader, would you select any of the options that have been presented to you in the last 12 plus years?
Hell no.
I wouldn't choose any of these warmongering fucks. And no offense, but everybody likes to say that Obama was this great president and everything like that. And I think that Obama was just as bad as every other president we've had. We're a warmongering country. We're a imperialistic country.
I'll say
we're warmongering.
No, not that. I'm saying I don't know as to if every president, but I would
say every president has been a warmongering.
Well, I'll say I just want to say I think there's some that have tried to stand up for some, but it's just hard when you're in that ruling class, right? But it's like how much can you really divert when you're also like.
But then that's the point. If you aren't looking for the best interest of the people, and your moral compass is being dictated by what the ruling class wants, then you are no longer on the path of helping the people. For example, my grandpa, he when he was alive, God rest his soul, in Puerto Rico. I know I said I was agnostic and anything, but still, he wasn't. So I want him to have what he wanted. So God rest his soul. He was a lawyer in Puerto Rico, and he used to work very closely with the government. He used to work with the agricultural department and things like that. And he would oftentimes get people come into his office and basically straight up try to bribe him to pass legislation that would help them be able to do whatever they wanted, basically, with the agricultural land and natural resources and stuff. And any time that anybody came to my grandfather's office and tried to bribe him, my grandfather would stand up, look them dead in the face, and say, I mean this with all respect, get the fuck out of my office. Like, my grandpa did not stand for people basically selling out their own people for mass wealth gain. And I think that's where we start to lose sight of what is important in life, bro. Because you pay taxes, I pay taxes, everybody pays taxes. But why is it that those taxes are being used to help these multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations, not trillion, but multi-billion-dollar corporations? Why is it that it's looked at as a bad thing, as a handout, for me to ask for my money back with social welfare projects, with helping communities, with building up communities? Why is it that I have to basically pay double to a corporation because my taxes are going to them and my hard-earned money is going to them because I need to buy things from Walmart to be able to survive. I need to buy things from the grocery store to be able to survive. And it just gets to the point where the politics and the commerce get so intertwined that there's no separating them. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, I am no longer a free citizen in a free society. I am just I'm just looked at as cattle at this point. But instead of producing meat or milk or whatever like that, I'm just producing money. Because that's the thing, labor is the only thing of value that we produce. And that labor then is taken and is extracted from us. And then we only see a small, very, very small portion of that labor being given back to us. That's in terms of hourly wages, and which is the new form of slavery. And then we don't see any of that return on our wages. Yet all of a sudden, these corporations are making millions and billions of more dollars, and oh my God, we had a record-breaking quarter here, we had a record-breaking quarter here. So what you're telling me is that labor production and labor production is going up. It's not that the workers are getting lazier. If anything, our productivity is going through the fucking roof. It's just you're being able to now withhold those earnings from me and able to now funnel them into a CEO, CFO, COO that hardly do anything, and they're making millions upon millions of dollars. And how does that even seem remotely fair? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, this is kind of. I mean, if I was like restructure the world, like I think we're kind of going in that earlier, but I'm not saying that. I'm not that. I want to take my point, but I'm just saying like. Let's kind of bring back to like pre-Reagan America. Like, there was definitely moving parts to get to where we were before, but like I feel like one of the very more nexus points or dividing points was that time, and like it's
within
just the gaps
within America or without or on the outside, like
within. Well, I'm talking about West America and like I'm saying the gaps between like wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I think I've talked to you before, but like in my ideal America, like. I like the idea of the suburban town, right? And like the idea that you could have a factory worker living right next to a fucking doctor that lives right next to a guy who owns a fucking record store, and they could all live on that block together. And maybe one guy had a little bit better shit, but like at the end of the day, dude, like.
And I think the error that a lot of people make is that they believe that people are saying that. Everybody should have the exact, when people say things like socialism or communism, people think that I'm saying that everybody should have the exact same stuff no matter how hard you work. What I actually mean when I say socialism and communism is that you should be receiving exactly what it is that you worked for. The value that you produce, that is the value that you should be seeing. And I don't understand when, for lack of a better term, when bootlickers come up to me and they're like, yeah, but if that happened, how would the CEOs make money? That's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is there shouldn't be a CEO position. The fact that there could be, there's already a general manager position. There's already a management position. Why is it that somebody way above all those people, one or two or a board of anywhere from 8 to 12 people, get to make a decision that's going to impact millions of people across an entire country? And in the entire world sometimes. I mean, obviously, you have different CEOs for different branches of like McDonald's UK, McDonald's United States, things like that. But the overarching,
I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying? And they should, in my opinion, they shouldn't exist. They don't produce any value. They don't really do anything. They did a breakdown the other day and they found out that a week capitalists work like 25 hours a week. Like of actual work towards the company, not including their
capitalists,
like owners, like CEOs.
Okay.
When I say capitalists, I'm talking about, because I think that's also a mistake we make. We like to call each other, "Oh, you're a capitalist. You're a capitalist. You're a capitalist." Whoa, bro, what are you saying, man? But the term, so capitalism is simply a term that describes the political and economic structure of privatizing the means of production. That is all capitalism. People like to say, "Oh, the free market, oh, commerce, all that." That is the free market is a concept that is a result of capitalism. I will say that. But all free market just means is that I have the ability to compete against you and price my things how I want to price them and things like that. That's all free market means. So basically a form of commerce. And when I say socialism and communism, all that means is that I want to basically make public. I want all the means of production. That way the factory workers can decide what it is that they're working on, how they're going to distribute their funds, how are they going to manage their factory and things like that, because they are the ones that are A, producing the labor, and B, they're the ones that live in that community. So, we need to also make sure that we understand terminologies when we use them, because one of my warrant officers in the military always used to tell me, words have power, and if you use words incorrectly, you will not be getting the results that you want. And I think that's very important to remember, that to use the proper terminology for proper things. That way you can understand what it is that we're actually talking about.
You should really rebrand communism then.
That's what I'm saying, because but that's the thing. If you look at CIA, and I know this is getting to sound very like conspiracy theorists and things like that, but it's really not. If you look at CIA documentations, they will say that there was really no threat in Cuba when the Cuban crisis was happening. Like a lot of the things that they were throwing against the Cuban communists and the USSR were made up at the end of the day. Now, that's not to say that there wasn't atrocities committed and things like that. But again, you have to always look in the lens of who were the atrocities committed against, what was the fight about, who was against who, and things like that. Because a lot of times, like I told you before we even started this, power isn't just gonna be given peacefully. And again, you have to think power for whom and on behalf of whom. Like when I say that I want power when I want power and I'm a communist, you really have to think about yourself. Okay, why do you want power, and who, on behalf of whom do you want power? Well, I want power for the people, by the people. That's it. I want the people to be able to decide their own destiny, and that's really how it is.
I want to rule. I want to rule amongst.
You want to rule? You want to be the ruler? How many times a week do you think about the Roman Empire? It's like, what the?
That's super tight.
like 7 times in a day?
I look at all the grades, and I just try to make sure I learn all the lessons they didn't learn.
Nah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't really.
That's a trouble statement right there.
I don't really care for any of that. I really, honestly, I wish I could just go fuck off into some shack and live a transcendental life.
I honestly lately I've been wanting the same. Like I've been thinking about like getting a farm and just like having like, but it's a crazy dream to have, because right now we're not even like owning a home. It's like the most difficult thing in the world. I think I'm gonna get property. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's hard, and I think a lot of people are blissfully unaware of the path that the United States is heading down right now, and it's going to be really sad one day when we wake up and we are no longer in a place where we have any freedom. We're no longer in a place, and the messed up part is that we say this, and I say this is a fear, but there are people currently living in America who live under those conditions, who are always having to, they wake up every day trying to figure out how they're going to survive to the next day, when their next meal is going to come in, and all these things. And it's a very weird concept to look at when you live in the world's, even historically, the world's most richest and powerful country historically. Like, there is no precedence for what America is. Like, you can't look back historically and be like, oh yeah, America looks like the British Empire, things like that. The amount of power, not just economic, but military power that we have is unprecedented, and we've never seen it. And I feel like because of that, America and its politicians just don't know how to act. We don't know how to act, and decisions were made back in the 70s and 60s and 50s, and I feel like we never revisit those decisions to look at okay, how can we close the gaps that were formed back then? We just keep creating new laws that then keep getting manipulated into these racist and classist ideals, and I just don't see them. Basically, I'm saying there's going to be a revolution. There has to be a revolution. There's going to be fighting, and not in the way people think. It's going to have to be all the workers together, and by workers I mean of all kinds, against the capitalist owners, because they're the ones that are funding all of these things. They're the ones that are paying for all our politicians. They're the ones that are paying for our international relations. They're the ones that are doing all this.
It would really just be people versus the bank. That's what we're talking about.
But the bank, I mean, yes and no, because at the end of the day, the bank is just a tool used by the capitalist owners. That's what
owns capitalists.
Other way
Take
around.
the loans out.
But other way around. The banks function by serving these people. The second that they don't serve these people anymore, because you gotta think, banks don't really have that much money. It's not like they have physical cash just sitting in the bank. They have promises that they have that amount of money, that if you ever need to take that money out, but capitalists have, look at Elon Musk for an example, look at Jeff Bezos, they have literal portfolios that are worth more than the GDP of some countries. They have literal portfolios that can move economies. And you're saying that a bank can manipulate that. They can't. Because a lot of times they don't go. I
think the banks are like where you're gonna find the snakehead.
Because dude, look at back in the Irish back in
where the Rockefellers and like them all made their money.
But that's not where they made their money. They made their money on the stock market. Because look back, I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was maybe like the 70s or something like that, or further back. The Irish had a banker strike, and they had a strike of bankers, and I think they went for like a month or 2 months or something like that, and they never got what they wanted. The bank, keep in mind, banks were closed. People were on strike. Banks were closed for like 2 months, and nothing happened to the economy. And
I think I think there might be a misrepresentation in what I mean by banks. I'm talking about big banks.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about big banks as well. Chase, because think about it this way, Chase is owned by these people. Chase, JP Morgan is owned. They have, these capitalist people have stock in those. They own all these things that you're mentioning, like
but
the banks.
But it's still not, like, if that was so say true, then back in 2008, Merrill Lynch shouldn't have collapsed. That those holders shouldn't have hit. And
but that's the thing, that because what you're saying is because one faction of the capitalistic leaders fell, then the whole thing it unwinds to become untrue. But there was another set of capitalist faction that was ready, because they saw the mistakes that these people were making, and they saw the writing on the wall. They saw it was going to collapse, and they were ready to take it over. And that's what happened. And that's why, yes, we went through the Great Recession up until 2011, 2012 when we started to get better. But we got better because they didn't let these things fail. It collapsed. People were struggling, but the ultra rich did not struggle. The ultra wealthy rich stayed ultra wealthy rich, and even got richer off of those concepts and those things. Just because certain banks failed, that's like if you and I are playing chess and I sacrifice a pawn, or I move a pawn and you take it out of nowhere and you take it. It's just a tool that they use to control the grander scheme of things. They don't fall into the same. Because a lot of times when they go get these loans and stuff like that, it's not like directly from like they don't go into the bank like you and I do and put in a loan request for $3 billion to buy Twitter, $45 billion. There is a whole slew of things that have to happen for them to be able to receive that money. That is so far and above the local branch of the bank and stuff like that to us it's unfathomable. Well, not unfathomable, but we can't really picture it because we're not in that society. We don't know what it looks like. And these banks are just tools and pawns. Because if you really thought that the banks controlled America and things like that, or if that was the case,
it's not the banks. It's kind of what you're saying. I'm just saying the people who own the banks, the people who rule, and it's what you're saying with the stock investors. But it's not.
Because the bank has no say. Again, the bank is just a tool. That's like if I opened Walmart, or I owned Walmart, and instead of blaming me as the owner for anything, you blamed Walmart, the entity. It's like, no, Walmart is doing these things because I choose that these things happen. I am choosing how we're moving forward. I am choosing what we're putting forward, what we're not, what we're protecting, what we're not. I am choosing that as the overarching CEO or president, owner, whatever you want to call me. But then the banks, what does the bank have to? Because if you look at a lot of things, like a lot of these corporations now have unregulated banks because of like their reward points and things like that, but they don't control anything to the degree that like Elon Musk control things or Jeff Bezos or things like that. People who, by the way, should have no business controlling anything. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, but it's just a little more complex than just that. Like,
is it? Or are you trying to complex this to be like, well, there has to be more to it?
No, I'm
just asking because I honestly want to know your point of view.
It's a little bit more different because like you are right, but the concept's just a little broad. It's just like
I feel like people.
So back in 2008, they were given money in order to in order to help the economy, right?
No.
But instead of doing that, like they were told to, they lent it out in order to make more money. And then it basically put other banks into positions who were wanting to. But it's like, well, now they're making a competitive advantage.
Well, because they were giving out mortgages to unqualified. They were basically people who were unqualified for a certain amount of loans were coming into the bank and asking for these huge lumps of loans to buy a house. And a bunch of banks were like, yeah, we'll give you these super high risk, super high fucking whatever loans and whatever. And then what in 2008 was when all these kickers for the actual percentage and everything was going to raise anything, and people weren't going to be able to pay it. And certain investors in Wall Street saw that. That's why they bet against it, saying that, the housing market's going to crash.
Yeah.
Because these banks were giving out mortgages to people that were unqualified to have them. And not unqualified because they shouldn't have had a house. It was just overvalued.
Agreed. And that's the big short. But there's also the too big to fail side, which is the government, what the government was doing actively in during that entire thing. And they were in knowledge of, and they were trying to basically, what I was always for, bite the bullet, get this shit in recession, fix this fucking shit. But when AIG, the insurance company for all these things, basically said, we don't even have the money to pay off all these banks. And when the government was like, we're going to basically give you the rope out that we didn't give the people before, the Merrill Lynch. And we're like, we're giving you this money to cover these, like, give it to the people, like, give it to, like, basically fill in your debts so that the system is not going to crumble. And instead of doing that, they basically just relent it out and kept the thing going.
But yeah,
but the argument is though, yes, the investors have say, but when in that right there, it just takes one person, right? And it's not the investors to be like, we're gonna do this with the money. But when one bank goes and says, instead of doing what you said we're gonna do to the government and just basically make the problem bigger, but we're also going to be the only one that gets competitive advantage of this, if nobody else does it, then every other bank is now forced into position to be like, well, I'm not the one that's going to get fucked over here.
But again...
Sorry, I'm raising my voice because the headphones...
You're fine.
I'm actually not trying to...
You're not even yelling at all, it's fine. But no, the thing is, again, we are placing on these entities, we are saying that it's the bank, that it's the bank, that it's the bank. But again, you have to literally pierce through the veil and look beyond and be like, who's controlling all of these things? Because again, the whole concept of capitalism is to exponentially acquire as much profit as possible by any means. So these people that are the ones that are going to end up getting the money, regardless if you're saying that it's because I'm not going to be the first one to do it or I'm not going to be regardless of the why. I'm not looking at the why. I'm looking at the what. Like, what happened and why did it happen? I'm not looking at like this person, or it's like, okay, what interests were they trying to serve? Because it's not the people's interest. It wasn't, I'm worried about Joe from the corner and Steve from the market, things like that. They're not worried about that. They're worried about their own community of ultra rich, ultra wealthy, ultra everything. If a branch of a bank failed or whatever, it doesn't matter because a lot of times they'll just rename themselves and reopen. It's really, banks as an entity are just are really an idea. It's really a concept for you to be able to go in there and collect some money. Because again, almost none of those banks have. Let's say they have 1,000 accounts with $100 each. They are not gonna have enough money that if every one of those accounts came in today and said, I want to withdraw all my money, they wouldn't be able to do that. They also collect that money and they distribute it however they want. They invest it in things that they want, so they're using your money to now make more money. Besides the point, those people that are behind the scenes, be it the Rockefellers, be it whoever, they are serving their own purpose. The bank is just a tool for them. The same way that right now, because of the amount of power they've accumulated, the government is just a tool for them. They don't see us as on their level. They don't see us as being worthy of the things that they have. They just see us as pawns that they can move to make sure that their lifestyle, that their financial security is maintained. But they're not making decisions for the betterment of communities. They're not making decisions for the betterment of society. They're making decisions to preserve their own interests. And again, I don't know what propaganda that they use and how they do it. I've been reading a lot, but I want to kind of read more into that. But somehow we made it so that companies and CEOs and presidents and owners and all these things are infallible. They can't do no wrong. And anytime that anything happens where a company fires an abhorrent amount of people or wages aren't being raised or things like that, we instantly blame the government. Why is it that the government should have any say or should, and this is going to sound the reverse, but I'll explain what I mean, why should they have to tell you, hey, you have to pay this person a livable wage. You have to pay this person $15 an hour. You have to pay this person, which by the way is not even the proper figure. Right now, for us with inflation and everything, $24 an hour would be around roughly what it would take for us to be able to own a home and have the regular lifestyle that our parents and our grandparents had. But why is it that the government needs to step in and intervene when you as a corporation are the one that should be making these choices and should be making these decisions? If you are, as you say you are in your mission statement and your vision statement, if you are for the betterment of communities and the betterment of people and the betterment of society.
I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say, but I guess things get murky at the top, and I don't have anything to present to you in order to convey that. But I'd also say that I don't think that every single person up there is a bad person.
I think that here's what I'll tell you. After I learned that the amount of money that it would take to solve some of the most heinous problems in society, such as homelessness, such as starving children. Once I learned that was a drop in the bucket for these rich people, I changed my tune from that. I'm like, they can't all be bad, to literally saying every single one of them is bad. Because every single day when you have enough money and you wake up and you don't simply decide, because it is well within your power, decide to end not world hunger at least, but American hunger right now, and then expand to the world later on, or American homelessness. If you belong to a country and you have the resources necessary to ensure that country is no longer suffering, no longer hungry, no longer starving, and you don't do so, you are a bad person.
So, I guess this is what I can offer in terms, but companies like people, boards like people, just different everywhere you go. To a degree. But there is also a divide, there's a divide in wealth even up there, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm talking about the 0.01%.
Yeah.
I am not talking about the millionaires. I am not talking about the.
But a
the
lot
10,
of the
the 10
0.08%, they're not like they exist even above like a stock investor at the time.
But how? Okay. Now take a step back from that. Why should that be allowed? Take it. Because again, you are functioning under the framework of things are the way they are. You are functioning.
I'm not functioning with the framework of things.
No. Like the argument you're making right now is coming from not you personally, but you are. I feel like you are saying like, well, this is how it is right now, so this is kind of how we have to handle it. My premise is we need to completely radically change how it is that we do things, because obviously we can't just allow people to do what they think is best, because they've proven more often than not that they will not do what is better for society. They will just do what's best for them. It's
not that. It's just that. For example, my dad has met the CEO of Exxon and a lot of the people there, and they like, and from what I've seen from my little sliver, like it seems like they keep up to a lot of what they say in terms of mission statement stuff. And my dad has gone out of his way even to show me, like every time I've came up as like some little rebellious hippie and been like, oil sucks, man, all this fucking shit. And he's like, before you say that, you might want to know a little bit about what's actually the truth in life. And
but the truth according to whom? That's what you have to look at, because
I think that so
because they're not comparing Exxon presidents or anything.
I'm not saying that, but that's another thing I came into too. That's what I was like. I was with a twisted perception of that. And you have to understand that you have your own biases too when you go into it. Now BP, different conversation. When they had the BP Horizon, when the big thing blew up, right? Their investors the week before voted in the thing to use less. Use basically cheaper and kind of more unstable fluid in order for the drilling process, even though they were advised otherwise to. That, in the name of profit. Now that was something to do, but it goes back to like when I said like one bank kind of went one way and it kind of fucked, and it's different in the sense, but like I know that not every single CEO up there is what you think. Like it's not as cynical. It's not as cynical as you think it is. But the problem is that when you have one of those motherfuckers have enough power or enough, if you have a psycho up there, it infects everything.
But that's the problem. Okay, and here's what I'll tell you. And I understand. And I think this is a point where we're always going to disagree, and that's fine. Friends disagree on things. Mm-hmm. But again, I just think that anybody who knowingly hoards wealth and collects labor power from people and takes that and only gives them back a sliver of it, I think that already in practice makes you a psychopath already. And I think that it's great that you want to see the good in people, and I think it's great that you want to give these people the benefit of the doubt.
It's not even that though. It's like I have to face the cognitive dissonance of myself. I have to face cognitive. I can't say I hate rich people and want to be rich myself.
And now here's what I'll tell you, because it's the same thing that I told my roommate Anthony. I'll tell you the same thing.
Who's that?
Let's talk about it. I'll tell you the same thing. You are making these assumptions and everything, and you are trying to express these feelings of almost understanding and acceptance, because you hope that if you ever make it to those levels of richness, that somebody would do the same for you. But I'm here to tell you, if you ever get as rich as these people get, then you had to extort people, then you had to steal from people, and you've had to do all these things, because they did a study. And by study, I mean a quick addition of numbers. Okay. And they said even if you saved $1 from the start of human creation, you personally saved $1 from the day humanity started all the way till now, you wouldn't even come close to $1 billion.
But it's not the CEOs. Quite possibly, It could be some of them.
It's
not all the CEOs. It's strongly more corrupt in the board of directors, or not board of investors.
Which the CEO is but the CEO's entire duty is to appease the board of directors. And how would I appease you? Easiest is if I become one of you. And also, for you to say, well, it's just because of the board of directors, is a little disingenuous, because then why doesn't the CEO take a pay cut? Why doesn't the CFO take a pay cut? Why doesn't the COO take a pay cut?
Arguably, if you might find a lot of stories out there. And I'm saying, like, you might be looking at things a little bit too narrowly here, in the sense, it'd be more of the founders, it'd be more of your entrepreneurials, it'd be more of your people who are taking preferred stocks or doing IPO investing. Like those
Ford, and I only use them because of the auto worker strike right now. Ford invested billions, either millions or billions, I think it was millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in stock buybacks to make their shareholders, their COOs, their CFOs, their CEOs richer. That money that could have been used to provide more, a higher wage and a higher standard of living for their workers, yet they decide to do stock buyback to enrich themselves.
Present me every other auto company. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, because General Motors did the same thing. That's why they're part of the strike.
Hyundai,
and
Kia.
Those aren't American companies, right?
You gotta put them all.
But those aren't.
Sorry, I'm being a little.
No, those are world markets, and you're right. But they're not American companies. I am specifically right now talking about the American companies because that's what I have knowledge of, and I can't really speak on Korean, Japanese countries, or Chinese companies, things like that. But I can say that a lot of for example, the wealth inequality in America right now between an average worker, not your lowest worker, the average worker and CEOs increased from, I think it was like 30 to 40%, like 40 times difference, to 1,000, over 1,000. The ones in China, Japan, and Korea and all these other countries has stayed around the 30 to 40% range. Why I'm saying that all of them are bad right now, and I agree, and still I will say all CEOs and CFOs and everything is bad. Because again, the premise of it still is at the heart of everything, regardless of the decisions they're making, regardless of what practices they're putting into play, what culture they're cultivating. Regardless, you are extracting money from me that I produce. I'll give you a fair example, and this is the same. You could say this is the same for everything. I used to work at Lake Point up in Cartersville. When I worked at Lake Point, I brought them. I think me and all the staff together, obviously working as concessions and everything like that, we brought in about $44,000 in one weekend on a tournament. Amazing. Yet I only get paid. I think at the time I got paid about $14-15 an hour. Mm-hmm. And so that means that during that weekend, I made about $500-ish, maybe a little more, after taxes and all that. But I produced with my coworkers $44,000 worth of revenue, not profit, but revenue. Yet I didn't get to see a single dime of that. That gets distributed to the CEO. Obviously, gross profit after you calculate the cost of goods sold and anything like that, whatever. But I didn't get to see a cent of that I produced, and that's where, in principle, not trying to dig into like, oh well, this and this. In principle, I find that to be reprehensible. I find that to be wrong, and I find that to be morally corrupt. That you are willing to take the value that I'm producing and hoard 90+% of it and give me enough to survive that I have to come back to continue to work for you. That is what I find reprehensible. Regardless of what decisions you're making for the environment, regardless of what decisions you're making as a corporation, regardless of any of that, regardless of how the office culture is, I don't care about any of that. I care about the fact that you are willing to extract value from a human being and then deny them the access to that value. One of the things that I hate about the current structure of capitalism in America is that we privatize the profits, but we socialize the adverse outcomes. So the second that a company's about to go under, the second that anything's like that, we We give them tax dollars off the wazoo to save them. But if a company is not able to sustain itself, A, it shouldn't be that big, or B, it shouldn't exist at all. And if you're going to complain about like, oh, the mom and shop pop can't survive, if they're not able to pay their workers a livable wage, then it is that sad. But you have to be able to produce, to make a product that produces enough demand that you can have that. But when you have corporations that have monopolized pretty much every industry, I mean, we went from having like 7 oil companies, 3, now there's about to be only 2. We went from having like 8 airlines down to like 3 major airlines, and they're still getting bought out every single day. We are beginning to get monopolized so very much, and that's the issues that I have. Again, be it the oil company that you feel very passionate about, or be it the agricultural company, or be it whatever, that's how I see it. I think that that's reprehensible. I think that that's wrong, and I think it's a modern day slavery tactic. And I will always attribute it to that. I will always say that. And I will always fight for people to be able to, A, wake up and realize their current status in life, but I'll always fight to make sure that people don't get treated like that. Because you have every right to happiness, you have every right to thrive, you have every right to all these things simply because you are human and simply because you are alive. You are alive, you are on this planet, therefore it is upon all of us to ensure that all of us are having the greatest experience that we can have. And we don't do that. Owners don't do that. Now, if you told me the CEOs were taking all that money and keeping like 100,000 of it for themselves and reinvesting all of it into social projects or into like whatever to help communities, then I'm like, okay.
So that's what I was kind of like. I think there's a lot of them out there that see themselves and are.
But again,
they are themselves cogs in the system, and there's a weird amount of like dudes who are like CEOs who are like active, looking more active in some like charitable events. Maybe sometimes wrong, but like more active in that than they are sometimes within the company.
And I agree,
but that's not every guy.
And I understand that.
But I find, from what my dad says, when you get up there, it's just like you find people kind of just like knowing how fucked this all is and how really stupid all of this is.
But they don't do anything about it.
Well, they gotta feed their families. That's where their heads go at.
But how much millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars do you need to feed your family? Why is it that you need three vacation homes and two out of country homes plus your main house?
Oh yeah, well, how is that divide? Well, there's those guys, but there's also dividing wealth there too. Not every single one of those guys was like.
But again,
playing the thing the right way or knew about the inside trading going in.
They're extorting their workers, regardless of what they do with the money they collect. They are under the principle of, again, you are collecting money from workers that are producing the value, that are doing the labor, that are doing all these things, and you're extracting all that value and then taking it for yourself. If you are silent in the face of fascism, you are a fascist. If you are complicit with fascism, you are also a fascist. Just because I understand that things are bad, but I don't do anything to change them, that doesn't make me a good person. That doesn't make me a moral person. If anything, that makes me just as bad as the people committing the atrocities. Because I can see it and I have the cognitive ability to recognize what's happening, but I don't have the backbone to step up and do something about it because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. Because the worst thing that can happen to a capitalist owner is that he gets relegated back to being a worker. That is the worst thing that... Now ask yourself, why is it that they're so afraid to be back in the working class? Why is it that they're so afraid to lose that status of owner? Why is that? Why is it that they see becoming a worker not being able to feed your family, not being able to have a good life? Because they see that and they understand that. So they rather continue to play in the system. They gave them all that so they can continue to have that. And just because they come out on these porches and these grand speeches they try to give and tell you how, well, I'm donating to this corporation and I'm starting a foundation to do this and I'm starting to do that, and it's like, okay, well, that doesn't matter because you're, again, not giving money directly to the people. And it's been proven time and time again that the best economic prosperity model is to give money directly to the people, because those people know what it is that they need, know what it is, how it is that they need to survive, what they're missing, what groceries they need, what things like that they need. These corporations, again, are only going to worry about the corporation, because I think it is like something like 30% of the money collected by nonprofit corporations or like aid corporations that do humanitarian aid and things like that. 30% of the collected money actually goes towards their cause. The other 70% goes to like the owners and goes to like their workers and things like that. Mm-hmm. So again, how much of that money are you actually using to help people? And that's where I have a huge issue with the capitalistic system, and why I think that we need to move away from it. And I think a lot more people in today's world, especially in America, are kind of waking up and seeing that. But it's a constant fight, and you have to be active in it. You can't just be a positive think on the sideline and being like, well, they understand the system's messed up, and they understand they're just trying to do their best and feed their family. What I'm saying is fix that playing field. Fix the underlying problem. Because, okay, fine, you understand it, but what are you doing to help? Nothing. You're not realistically doing anything to help, and that's where my problem comes in. You can be all these thoughts and prayers, fine, great. Thanks for being there with me in thoughts and prayers. Now actually put your boots on the ground and help me too, because this field isn't gonna plow itself. These crops aren't gonna grow themselves. These houses aren't gonna build themselves. And thoughts and prayers only get you so far. Thoughts and prayers help us connect emotionally and help us understand that there's people that sympathize with our cause, but it doesn't do anything to further the cause. And that's my kind of stance on the whole current economic system of really the world. Is the unfortunate part. Really, because there's really no active, in many countries, there's no active economic model that competes against capitalism. Capitalism has strong armed everybody into being like, you are either going to participate in this system or you're not going to be able to survive. And that's the sad reality we currently live in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because it sucked for me when I was like, I used to be such a huge like fan of certain politicians. I used to be like, oh my god, you're doing so good, you're trying. And then I really thought about it, and I really took a step back, and I really read, and I really did some like research, and read like files that had come out from the CIA, from the FBI, read books of historians that have been doing research and everything like that. And I'm like, you didn't do anything for us. Like, a lot of promises, a lot of like, a lot of hoo-hoo, rah-rah, a lot of hootenanny, but nothing came about anything. It all was just smoke and mirrors to deflect from the real big problems that we have, which is these inequalities of prosperity, of wealth and everything. And it's like, okay, well, like, how do I move forward from here? Like, and I had to take a step back and be like, wow, none of these politicians care. None of these rich people care. And it's evident, again, with how they live their everyday lives. And it's great that we want to be apologetic because we believe that people have good in them. But when given multiple opportunities to prove how good they are and they don't do anything with that, that's where we have to kind of be like, okay, how many times am I going to, extend my hand to the snake and the snake bite me? And how many more times am I going to do that until I realize the snake doesn't fuck with me? The snake isn't interested in my well-being, so why the fuck am I going to continue to give it opportunities to affect me? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Not very eloquent, very wordy, very badly said, but
I don't know about that.
It's sad. It's sad because I do want the world to be like how you describe it. I do want pockets of communities that are deeply connected and deeply thriving and they care about each other. Like, I want every individual to have the power to provide for their own destiny, and that's really all that it should be. Like, I think that's our mistake. I think our mistake is that we think that this is the end all be all of humanity. That we don't see ourselves as a stepping stone in evolution. That we see ourselves as like a completed finished product, and that this is how it's always gonna be, and this is how it always was.
I think it's more than that, but I think it's a big contributing issue.
What do you think contributes to it?
I don't know. I think people just need to get educated more, to be honest.
Fact. I think education's
I think that's kind of one of the biggest issues, and you might not like hearing this, but I think it's one of the biggest things that like needs to be in place if thing like communism was to be set in stone. Is like you really like understand more and more why the idea of like the whole Soviet man is like a thing within like some of the I think Karl Marx wrote, but the idea is that like every single guy is like they get it. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing about life is making people, not even making people, but if people get it or not. Like, I think Miyamoto even writes about it in his book. It's like, you have to delegate tasks to people within a project to their capable level. And if that wasn't a thing, I mean, it'd be so much easier in life. Like, if I could just be like, dude, like, let's go do this shit. Everyone understands what to fucking do. We pick this shit up and we fucking go get it done instead of me being like,
but I feel
all right, buddy, I just need you to fucking sit here, do that, okay?
But that's the problem. That's a capitalistic creation. What you just described right now of simplifying the project to a single point that's almost monotonous and just repetitive for you to do. That is a strategy of capitalism.
But what if it's the only thing they're capable of?
That's the only thing that they're capable of because of the underlying issue, which is the socioeconomic conditions that they have been put under by, for whatever reason, may it be because they're descendants of slavery.
We need to educate people.
Well, we need to reinvent the system realistically, because if you think about it, with a lot of revolutions that came through in the world. You saw it in France, you saw it in Spain, you saw it in Haiti, you saw it in all these revolutions that kind of took place against monarchies and dictatorships and things like that. It was a complete restructure of the economic and the social and the governing class, and it was a complete revamp in a lot of ways. And America never really did that. America freed the slave, but never really did anything to incorporate these people into society. It never did anything to really make sure that we were more together culturally as a country. They just kind of said, okay, these people are free now, figure it out. And then that's why, again, in the 1960s, we had to have the Civil Rights Act. In the 1980s, we had to petition to stop redlining, and it stopped, but it's still happening with gerrymandering and things like that. And that's why in the 2000s we've had court cases against what's it called, mortgage discriminations, that black people and people of color tend to be overrepresented in the amount of mortgages that are declined, and they don't allow these people to have houses and have property, which has been shown to be the number one way to build generational wealth. And you put up so many obstacles for people, and then to try to minimize it to just say, well, it's about education, they need to be educated, is correct. There needs to be more education, but with that education there needs to come actual physical, social, economical reforms that help these people that have been disenfranchised for so many years. When people, and I think that's the thing that we get wrong, when people a lot of times release the people that are talking about it in a serious manner, about reparations, for example, nobody means that you need to pay me X amount of dollars, or you need to give me a check for X amount. A lot of times what we're saying is, by reparations, we just mean recreate the system. Reinvent the system that we have created, that was still built on the practices of slavery, that are still built on the practices of segregation, that are still built on the practices of discrimination. And we never changed the system. We just continue to build up on it like high enough that when you look down, it doesn't look like it's, that you're built on murky waters. And that's what we really mean. We really mean, hey, as people of color, me being Hispanic, Latino, and, being very proud of that, we always say, hey, we just want to be treated equal. And a lot of times it's erroneous for people to say, well, you're given all the same opportunities. And it's like, I'm really not, because, all these people get to go work for their, my white counterparts get to go and work for corporations that maybe their dad has an in on, or their grandpa, or nepotism and cronyism, and all these things are so prevalent, and we have been denied the ability to participate and take advantage of these things, because anytime that we've had any movement that has helped us acquire more wealth or helped us acquire more status, it immediately gets extinguished by white supremacy and by capitalistic movements that are again enforced by white supremacist people. And that's what it looks like nowadays. And that's why white supremacy today is more dangerous than ever, because they do it, like we were talking about earlier, it's now that smart racism. No longer are people really having to deal with the being called names or degrading titles or things like that. It is now people using logical fallacies, but that sounds so logical that to people who, like you said, aren't educated in the subject, it makes perfect sense. So now we're trying to combat those things on two different fronts, and it gets so much harder because it sounds so logical, and it sounds like, and I'm talking about people from like Yale, Harvard, Princeton, all these Ivy Leagues some of them think like this, and I say some because, again, not all of the students, but a lot of students that do take advantage of being legacies, that do take advantage of that their status in society comes from being white, that's all they know. So that's what they perpetuate, and that's the way to move forward. And again, the KKK and all these super white supremacist groups have had to move how they market themselves to be more, palpable and more digestible to the local everyday audience. That's why people say racism is dead, because I don't see anybody going into a black person's house and killing them and shooting them and doing all this. And to that I say, well, you haven't been looking at the news hard enough, because it happens every day with police forces. But also I say, that's not what racism looks like anymore. Racism has, especially those people who want power, they realize that they have to evolve to be able to enter the political sphere where they're actually going to be able to make differences that actually affect these communities of color. And that's where we need to be more focused on. That's why we need to ensure that we are actively participating in politics. I always tell people that voting is the minimum that you should be doing to be actively participating in politics. You voting is the bare minimum you should be doing. You should be getting informed. You should be petitioning. You should be going out there and talking to your local alderman, talking to your local council, talking to your local officials. That way you are making grassroots movements to actually make a change in your local sector, your local community, your local whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot to do there, huh? It's a lot moving forward.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps.
It is a lot of steps, and hopefully we don't get discouraged by the long journey ahead. There's a lot to do, and we might not get to see the fruits of the labor, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't start planting the seed now.
I'm living the nomadic life, man.
I'm saying, bro, I want to actually, regardless of, kind of all, besides the whole, capitalism or whatever, America sucks, because I think America's great in a lot of ways. I just think the people that are currently residing in the system that currently is in place.
For a jail cell, it's pretty good.
For a jail
cell, it's pretty nice. It's better than other jail cells out there.
It is better. I mean, it's a lot
it's big enough for me to walk around in, so.
Yeah.
They let me out sometimes too, which is cool. When I have enough points to let me go out see the world.
It's a video game now.
Basically, I get enough travel points in order to go see somewhere for a week.
That's crazy. To me, that's another crazy concept that you have to have a visa or a passport. That's a whole other subject.
Let's say we got 2 hours into this. We might have to.
Yeah, we can cut it right here. But that's a whole other subject that we can get into later.
Stay tuned. Next time with fucking Jose, we're gonna have this man come as a recurring guest. So this is Jose 1. There's gonna be Jose 2, 3, 4. Each time he'll have a different
Jose,
suit.
Jose B, Jose C.
Squared. But yeah, that's another great episode of Fuck School Radio. As always, do you have anything you want to shout out to say to people?
Yeah. Free
Republica.
Palestine from the river to the sea. Israel doesn't have the right to exist. And war shouldn't be a thing, but free Palestine.
Vox Republic, dude, let's go.
Shiny, shiny, plastic, black mirror fascist, obsessed capitalist. Are you feeling guilty Catholic? Pretty, picturesque Facebook status. Happy family and happy marriage, like the magazine pages. Superimposed with Photoshop and happy faces. Where cancer doesn't exist and your daddy lives for 8